Alright, so Mission 1B, sail chart number 1. So what you have to do when you open this up, it's going to say watch the video above first. This is the video that you're supposed to watch. When you're reading the directions for your handout, it's going to say read a book at your level. You should know your level by now, and you should know how to pick out a book by now. You're going to record the book title, pages read, and time read on the table below. And then most importantly, while reading, follow the directions as outlined in the steps below the reading data table. So, while you're reading, you're going to be following these steps. Best practice, make sure you read the steps before you actually read. That way you know what to do. So, while you read, you're going to find at least 8 words or phrases you did not understand. Then, you're going to copy the words and phrases down on the left side of the chart, this chart. And then you're going to look up the denotative meaning for each word. So, let's keep it simple. We're just going to follow steps 1 and 2 for right now. I'm going to show you how to do it using one of my favorite books, Hatchet. So you're going to have your own book at your level, you're going to read it, and while you read, you're going to find 8 words or phrases you did not originally understand. So, if I was reading Hatchet, this is a little excerpt from Hatchet, I'm going to be looking out for 8 words or phrases I did not understand. So, we'll just do the first paragraph as an example. Brian Robinson stared out the window of the small plane at the endless green northern wilderness below. It was a small plane, a Cessna 406, a bush plane, and the engine was so loud, so roaring and consuming and loud, that it ruined any chance for conversation. So when I read that, I said I definitely did not understand what bush plane was. Don't know what type of plane that is. And the word consuming, I know what it means, but I don't really know why they would use that word in this sentence. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I kind of know what the word means, but it doesn't make sense to me inside the sentence. I continued reading and I found more words or phrases that I didn't understand, like initial, instruments. Now I know what an instrument is, but I didn't understand it inside the sentence. All the instruments in his face as the plane clawed for altitude, didn't know what that was either. Jerking and sliding on the wind currents as the pilot took off. Also catalog and tearing. Those are my words. So you can see, as I read, I just highlighted the word using this. Highlight. There, I unhighlighted it. Now I can highlight it again. Cool. So I found my 8 words or phrases I did not understand. I both highlighted it inside there. So you can't really highlight inside your book. That's why you're going to do it right here. Copy it down. Bush plane. Bush plane. Perfect. So copy down all the words on the left side, and then look up the denotative meaning. You should know by now the denotative meaning means the dictionary meaning. So you can use the internet. You can use a dictionary, whatever you like to do. I know for most of them, I ended up just Googling the phrase and finding the definition that seemed most correct. So for bush plane, I Googled that and I got a light propeller-driven aircraft with a high wing designed to land on and take off from airstrips or ground. So it seems to me, since it says it's a light propeller-driven aircraft, I'm guessing it's a really small plane. The word consuming, it says it's completely filling one's mind and attention. That makes sense. So, did that for the rest of them. That's step 1 and 2. Very easy. While you read, find your 8 words or phrases, and then copy the words or phrases down on the left side. Look up the denotative meaning. You can use the dictionary or the internet. So, we'll continue on. Step 3. Look back at how the word was used in the story. Record either yes or no in column 2. If you recorded yes, move on to the next word. If you recorded no, then come up with a definition for the word that would make sense inside the story. You can use the internet if necessary. So this is the step 3 chart. We're going to copy our words down again on the left side. That's the first step to do. Copy all your words down. And then you're going to answer this. Does the denotative meaning make sense for the word in the story? So for the word bush plane, I'm going to go back to my story, find what bush plane was. I remember the denotative meaning was a light propeller-driven aircraft with a high wing designed to land on and take off from rough airstrips or ground. So I'll look back at how it was used, and it says it was a small plane, a Cessna 406, a bush plane. Makes sense, so it's a small plane. So I said it does make sense. Now remember the directions say if you recorded yes, move on to the next word. So that's what I did. Consuming, does the denotative meaning make sense for the word in the story? Yes. Remember that's completely filling one's mind and attention. I look back, and the engine was so loud, so roaring, and consuming and loud, so I could literally just replace the definition. So roaring and filling one's mind and attention, and loud, that it ruined any chance for conversation. Makes perfect sense. Cool. So if we kept looking down, we skipped the next word. Initial made sense. But this word, instruments, no, it did not make sense. My denotative for meaning for instruments was a tool or implement, especially one for scientific work. So if I look how instruments was used up here, it says he had never flown in a single engine plane before, and to be sitting in the co-pilot seat with all the controls right there in front of him, all the instruments in his face. So instruments, a tool or implement, especially one for scientific work, doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So I recorded no. That's my answer there. Now, the connotative definition for the word as it is used in the story, that's the emotional meaning, or what the word means just inside the story. So you kind of have to make it up. You can create it individually, or you can use the internet. My best recommendation, make it up. Try to see if you can come up with a definition that makes sense. I said buttons, knobs, or tools a pilot uses to fly the plane. So I imagine the instruments that we're referring to here, not like the tuba or the trumpet, or little scientific tools that you use in Jackson's class. No, the instruments in his face as the plane clawed for altitude, those instruments are the buttons that you see inside the cockpit of the plane. That's what I figured out. So, makes sense. The connotative meaning is the correct one. It's the buttons, knobs, or what did I say? Buttons, knobs, or tools a pilot uses to fly the plane. Created individually. You could use the internet if you're very confused, if you get very stuck on a word, but in general, I bet you guys are smart enough to come up with it individually. I did the same thing for clawed for altitude. The phrase I came up with was clawed equals scratch or tear something with the claws or fingernails. Altitude equals the height of an object in relation to sea level. I could not actually, when I looked up this phrase, I couldn't find a denotative meaning. So what I did, I looked up clawed, and I looked up altitude. Doesn't really make sense inside the story. But I figured out what the phrase actually means in the story is that the plane is gaining altitude. It's getting higher and higher in the sky. That's what I figured out. So, struggling to get high in the air. That's step 3, guys. You're going to do that for all your words. You're going to look back at how the word was used in the story, record either yes or no in column 2. If you record yes, like we did here, you'll move on to the next word. If you recorded no, then you're going to come up with a connotative definition. You're going to do it either individually or using the internet. Okay? So, step 4, record whether the word used the denotative meaning or the connotative meaning inside the story in column 2. Then explain your answer in column 3. So, a lot of this is copying down. You're going to copy down your words on the left side. Just again, copy and paste. It's easier that way. And then you're going to copy down whether it was denotative or connotative. You've already done the work for these first 2 columns in step 3. Bush plane, denotative. Bush plane, denotative. Consuming, denotative. And up here, consuming, denotative. So you've done most of the work for step 4 inside step 3. The only thing you're going to have to do is tell me, why do you think the author, mine says Gary Polson, yours is going to say the author, uses this meaning for the word. So this is inside your own words. You're going to have to make a guess. I said Gary Polson uses the phrase bush plane to point out that it was a small plane with no passengers besides Brian and the pilot. Notice I don't say because it's the best word for the sentence. It's a really lame answer. You have to give me something definitive, something a little bit more complex than that. I said to point out that it was a small plane with no passengers besides Brian and the pilot. Let's look at one for connotative. Instruments. Connotative, And I said it's to make the plane seem more complicated from Brian's perspective. Remember, we're up here. Brian's never flown in a plane like this before, so he's looking at all the instruments in his face as the plane clawed for altitude. We're hearing this story from Brian's perspective, so Brian thinks the plane is really complicated because of the instruments. I don't know. I made that guess. I think it's a pretty good one. So you're going to do the same thing for all these words down here. Remember, you've done the work for these first two columns in step 3. The only thing you really have to do for step 4 is answer this question. Okay? So that's the entire assignment, I believe. You're going to do this with your own book. You're going to read a book at your level. You're not using Hatchet. Well, unless you picked out Hatchet, which, if you did, enjoy it. But you're going to read a book at your level. You must read at least 12 pages in at least 20 minutes. You're going to record how much you read here. While you read, you're going to follow those directions that I just showed you, and with your own book. So first step, find at least 8 words or phrases you did not understand, and copy those words or phrases down on the left side of this chart. Then look up the denotative meaning for each word. Okay? That's your assignment. Continue on with step 3 and 4. If you have any questions, you can ask me or just use the video. I think that's it. Alright. Trying to pause this video.